Warmest greetings from fabulous Las Cruces, New Mexico, best known for its proximity to the White Sands Missile Range and the Trinity site where Oppenheimer and company exploded that first atomic bomb. I'm Mike Hyman, president of the Institute of Marketing, Futurology, and Philosophy. I'm also a Distinguished Achievement Professor Emeritus of Marketing at New Mexico State University because I'd be lost without unrestricted online access to a university library. Perhaps I'm marketing academia's equivalent of science fiction author Philip K. Dick. You may have recalled watching movies such as Blade Runner, Total Recall, and Minority Report, or television shows such as The Man in the High Castle. However, you probably didn't realize his work inspired those movies and shows. Similarly, many of you may have unknowingly encountered my work or its derivatives. Although extensively published, I believe I'm best known for wearing shirts decorated with Looney Tunes cartoon characters, like, these. You can decide whether their use of Acme products is a mere coincidence for this keynote address. I've worked extensively with former doctoral students because I ascribe to the Pottery Barn rule of you break it, you own it. I've also enjoyed working with philosophers, psychologists, and historians because they weren't disappointed by how little I know about their discipline and couldn't assess how little I know about marketing. In the fall of 1992, I taught in Belgium, where my students referred to me as the entertaining American professor. Although I appreciated that sentiment, I believe I benefited from a strong contrast effect, as edutainment had yet to reach Europe. Thus, my humorousness remains unconfirmed. Like you, I spent much of my professional life thinking and lecturing about marketing. Although personally enjoyable, the problem with these activities, when it's not yet possible to digitally archive everything we see, hear, and think, is we're leaving a limited record for others to ponder. Clearly, many of my marketing-related thoughts, like whether to buy fresh chicken this week because it's on sale, aren't worth further consideration. However, distilling my extended thinking about social science problems in general and marketing-related problems in particular may be of some societal value. Hence, this video version of my upcoming Association of Collegiate Marketing Educators talk. Note that occasionally my rapid-fire, non-marketing-centric short discourses may mimic drinking from a fire hydrant. In the style of marketing scholar Stephen Brown and many stand-up comedians, I'll heavily rely on obscure movie, TV, and cultural references. I apologize for both in advance. Fortunately, y'all own smartphones with internet access and virtual digital assistants. So, in a nod to Bullwinkle J. Moose of cartoon fame, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. So, here we go. First, I want to sincerely express my appreciation for the Association of Collegiate Marketing Educators recognizing me with its annual Trailblazers Award for impactful contributions in marketing. I'm humbled to be mentioned in the same breath as Drs. Zaltman and Farrat, the only previous recipients. However, I'm also grateful for the opportunity to reflect upon my previous scholarly work and how it informs this highly speculative, and if you're watching the video posted on the Institute for Marketing, Futurology, and Philosophy's website, extremely primitive pre-conference version. And I say extremely primitive because I'm sure my thinking about imminent and post-singularity marketing will evolve. Please recognize this talk's title is an oxymoron. In a societal context, futurists have used the term singularity, drawn from the notion in physics of undefinable points like black holes, where the known laws of physics no longer apply, as a metaphor reflecting our inability to predict a post-singularity future. Thus, thanks in advance for patiently watching me attempt the impossible. Immanuel Kant observed that, quote, all philosophical analyses are either obvious or wrong. Given those alternatives, I would prefer you believe the former about this talk. My lifelong science fiction fandom, which this talk reflects, was inspired by the awe I experienced as a child watching those televised Mercury spacecraft launches on Saturday morning television. Thus, this talk may sound like science fiction to kind listeners, or tinfoil hat lunacy to less kind listeners. However, I hope it'll be somewhat reminiscent of physicist Richard Feynman's famous Caltech talk entitled, There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom, an invitation to enter a new field of physics. Delivered in 1959, it anticipated extreme miniaturization and nanotechnology. Although my institute can afford the modest prizes that Feynman offered, I've yet to conceive of commensurate challenges like printing letters small enough for a pinhead-sized Encyclopedia Britannica. So, what's a trailblazer? And how might I be one? When I asked Microsoft's Copilot to find a trailblazer in academic scholarship as follows, quote, someone who pioneers new ideas, methods, or research areas significantly advancing their field. These individuals often challenge established norms, introduce innovative concepts, and inspire others to explore new directions. They are recognized for their groundbreaking contributions, which can lead to new theories, practices, or applications that shape the future of their discipline. Notice that innovativeness is a necessary but insufficient condition for trailblazing, and that the word pioneers is performing the heaviest lifting in that definition. As a verb, the meaning of trailblazing closest to pioneers is to lead the way for a group. Frankly, I never intended to lead the way to anything. In a Socratic vein, the pleasure I derive from pondering life's profound and practical questions drives my thinking compulsion. Rather than for self-aggrandizement or profit, a need to reveal my distilled thoughts about different things to myself grounds my writing compulsion. And you can decide whether to attribute my lengthy distillation process to vital percolation time or mental sluggishness. Conveniently, I could also offer these distilled thoughts in a marketplace of ideas, hoping they would inform other scholars. Although it's mine, I can't say whether this is a superior or inferior mindset for aspiring academic trailblazers. Nonetheless, I thought I'd share it with you. If I asked you to name a trailblazing marketing scholar best known for writing about marketing theory and philosophy, you might name, for example, Acme's first Trailblazer Award recipient Jerry Zaltman or Russ Belk, if you primarily focus on understanding and engaging with consumers. Or you might mention Rick Boghosi, if you believe structural equation modeling and mid-level theorizing is the best path, and I did intend that pun, to scientific marketing theory. Or perhaps Phil Kotler, if you focus on marketing management. Or Robert Bartels, if you prefer a historical perspective. Or Shelby Hunt, if you prefer a philosophy of science approach. or Bob Lush if you are a proponent of service dominant logic, or even Frank Bass, one of my former professors, if you're a subscriber to marketing science. If I asked who else many, many, many times, you might eventually name me. So how would I finish the phrase, Mike Hyman, if you? Essentially, what's the most insightful way I could summarize my almost half-century of theorizing and philosophizing about marketing? If you prefer stories about human physical prowess, this parallels a John Henry versus the steam-powered drill competition. Alternatively, if you prefer stories about human mental prowess, this parallels a Garry Kasparov versus Deep Blue chess match. Unfortunately, I've got a spoiler alert here. John Henry dies after winning, and Kasparov initially won, but eventually lost to Deep Blue. That doesn't bode well here. I confess to over-preparing for talks like this one, and I think you've already sensed that from this delivery. In that tradition, I initially deluded myself into believing I could collect all written works related to imminent and post-singularity marketing and then read them. However, university libraries stand as humbling testaments to how little anyone can know, and as I'm not speed reading Barry Allen, aka the Flash of comic book fame, reality eventually prevailed, and I chose to mine my scholarly history for a coherent story instead. So here goes. As a good empiricist, I immediately considered a reductionist approach that required sorting my CV's list of publications. In that vein, I initially performed a human intuition-based rather than computer algorithm-based cluster analysis of my published work. The result? Most of those publications fell into these 6 categories. Marketing theory, no surprise there. Marketing futurology, marketing advertising and research ethics and regulations, marketing theory, research methods, and pedagogy. I then asked ChatGPT, on what topics has marketer Mike R. Hyman written? The answer listed these categories. Marketing theory, again, no surprise. Marketing ethics, consumer advertising, survey research methodologies, philosophical analyses in marketing, and marketing futurology. Ironically, if you read the biographical blurb accompanying my recently published work, these are the 6 categories I mentioned in the last sentence of those blurbs. Thus, I wonder whether ChatGPT is as clever as I assumed. Although I've somewhat honed my Boolean search skills during my academic career, I'm no large language model prompt engineer. So I gathered digital copies of all my publications and asked Vidas Lukosius, a current partner in futurology crime, to perform a ChatGPT analysis. The resulting report on, quote, recurring themes identified across the provided academic files included these categories. 1. Technological influence. This theme accompanies the use of AI, digital platforms, and technological tools in marketing research and practice. 2. Consumer-centric approaches, which focused on understanding and meeting consumer needs through personalization and behavior-driven strategies. 3. Ethical practices that reflected a commitment to sustainability, ethical marketing practices, and corporate responsibility. 4. Knowledge dissemination, highlighting the role of conferences, newsletters, and publications in sharing insights and fostering academic collaboration. 5. cross-disciplinary research that demonstrated integration of insights from sociology, psychology, economics, and other fields. 6, sustainability, emphasizing green marketing strategies and the importance of environmental conscious practices. And finally, global marketing trends, addressing globalization and the importance of culturally adaptive marketing strategies. This list is roughly sequenced by incidence rate, at least that's what ChatGPT reported, rather than importance. I included the additional detail because it seemingly reflects ChatGPT's deeper insights into my simplistic clustering efforts. Nonetheless, it's a busy summary that brings a blind men and the elephant parable to mind. Although my human intuition and primitive ChatGPT analyses overlap substantially, and Vitus's ChatGPT analysis seems more insightful, should you kindly refer to my published work as either eclectic or not so kindly as scattershot? Isn't a more concise and insightful summary possible? Well, I once heard Don Layman summarize his extensive published work during a conference session I attended many years ago. From a personal chronological perspective, he used a box and arrow model to show how these works interrelated to him, despite those linkages being non-obvious to others. For those of you old enough to remember the persona of Professor Irwin Corey on late-night TV talk shows, is it impossible to model my published works without maniacally drawing or an indecipherable diagram with an overwhelming number of boxes and arrows? Although biographers and literary scholars have identified additional themes like technology's effect on society, they generally agree Philip Dick's two basic literary themes were the nature of reality and what it means to be human. Could I classify my published work comparably? Whether as an author or an instructor, we're all participants in the worldview persuasion industry. At least that's how I define it. What's the highest aggregation level that summarizes my persuasive efforts? Say that 5 times fast. In a eureka moment, I realized my efforts, distilled to their fundamental essence, have focused on defining and assigning value to marketing-related entities and behaviors, which dovetails with philosophy and futurology, hence no coincidence regarding the name of my institute. So, why is this insight important? Well, consider the following futurists and their erroneous forecasts. Remember, ultimately, I'm going to be making some forecasts here. So, based on vacuum tube technology and 1943 calculation needs, IBM President Thomas Watson purportedly predicted the world would only need 5 computers. Of geodesic dome fame, architect and inventor Buckminster Fuller envisioned that technology would solve humanity's problems, leading to a utopian society. However, he underweighted how social, political, and economic factors would affect poverty, inequality, and environmental degradation. Another example, the Club of Rome's Malthusian resource depletion timelines in 1972's The Limits of Growth underrated technological advancements and marketing dynamics effects on finding new resources and improving extraction efficiencies. Biologist Paul Ehrlich's prediction of mass starvation during the 1970s and 1980s failed to account for advances in agricultural technology. And for my final example, by underestimating the financial, technical, and political challenges, science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke overestimated the pace of space exploration and colonization. Whether discussing philosophy, futurology, or both, sound premises and assumptions are prerequisites for valid arguments and accurate forecasts. And unlike Fidel Castro, Joseph Stalin, Marcel Proust, or Leo Tolstoy, our talks and writings typically are length constrained. Thus, they are elliptical by nature and entail many implicit premises and assumptions. Nonetheless, revealing invalid arguments or untrustworthy forecasts is often possible by making implicit assumptions explicit. Hence, making my scholarly focus, which I've already done, and assumptions explicit, which I'm going to do, allows you to temper your assessment of my forecast accordingly. So, what are my assumptions? As I mentioned earlier, my forecasts for imminent and post-singularity marketing are predicated on a partial list of general and marketing-related assumptions because I'm still converting my implicit and largely anthropomorphic assumptions into explicit ones. And note that rather than by importance, expositional convenience dictated the order in which I'm about to present them. So, here are my 10 general assumptions. First one. More than meta-analyses of articles published in prestigious marketing journals are needed to structure the themes, stages, tensions, and challenges AI and other futuristic technologies like robotics pose to marketing theory and practice. In addition, the non-marketing scholarly literature and speculative fiction works, aka science fiction, offer rich insights and thought experiments that can inform forecasts. Anyone familiar with the books The Space Merchants and The Merchant's War by authors Frederick Pohl and Cyril Kornbluth knows speculative fiction can offer valuable insights into marketing practice. Okay, assumption number 2. No earthly apocalypse will occur before humanity ensures its survival by colonizing, third time's the charm, I guess, colonizing other planets, as cosmologist Stephen Hawking and astronomer Carl Sagan have implored, or had implored, unfortunately, since both have passed. For example, I'm assuming there won't be a highly contagious and deadly virus a la the movies I Am Legend or the TV show The Last Man on Earth. I'm also assuming there won't be a killer asteroid a la the movies Don't Look Up or the TV show Salvation. I'm also assuming there won't be a Frankenstein's monster technology like a supreme autocratic or humanity exterminating AI like that depicted in Forbin Project, book and movie, and the Terminator movies. I'm also assuming there won't be a world-consuming gray goo of self-replicating nanobots that absorbs the earth. And I'm also not assuming a paperclip calamity. And let me explain that last one. The paperclip maximizer problem is philosopher Nick Bostrom's thought experiment about an AI tasked with efficiently producing as many paperclips as possible. Eventually, the AI would realize that humans, who are composed of atoms that are convertible to be converted by the AI, but are potentially convertible into paperclips, could shut it off or change their goals. As a result, the AI would prevent itself from being shut off or changed while acquiring all available matter and energy for paperclip production, thus assigning a seemingly benign task to an AI could ultimately destroy humanity. One hell of a thought experiment. Historian Yuval Harari contends the acronym AI should really stand for alien intelligence, as non-biological intelligence may differ markedly from our own. Furthermore, AI's infinite scalability makes artificial superintelligence, which I'll refer to as ASI, inevitable. Thus, ASI far exceeding human intelligence is unlikely to share human values and preferences unless indoctrinated accordingly. Intentional and incidental biases in training data aside, and there's plenty of literature that discusses that particular problem, an ASI without human values may make autonomous decisions inconsistent with human preferences and survival. And this is also known as the value alignment problem. Like the wish-granting wish twisters in both bedazzled versions, if you've ever seen either movie, and Disney's Aladdin movie, ASI may misrepresent human instructions regardless of their seeming precision. So given this likelihood, Harari believes avoiding ASI-caused calamities induced by instruction ambiguity requires humans to retain instruction revision abilities responsive to changing conditions. Essentially, if we see we've given an instruction that is producing results contrary to our desires, we need to be able to change the instruction. Okay. Assumption number 3. Believing national regulation and legislation can preclude many anticipated negative externalities caused by futuristic technologies during a brief, imminent singularity period. Wow, I guess I really did write that sentence. Is misguided. For example, national laws and regulations cannot control or slow AI development unless increasingly nationalistic political policies worldwide ban international trade. Hence, regulatory and legislative efforts to harness AI will fail because many countries will pursue AI solutions for selfish national security purposes, and many multinational corporations will seek AI-fueled sustainable competitive advantages. Think of this as a prisoner's dilemma type problem. Creating the internet led to e-commerce, which led to cybercrime, perpetuated via malware, which led to online security software. Computer tech companies like Alphabet, Anthropic, Microsoft, and OpenAI could develop a humanity-protecting ASI with offensive capabilities that could stop an evil ASI designed to harm consumers. Such an ASI could police an evil ASI without human intervention, much like the police robot Gort from the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. And of course, y'all remember the famous command, Gort, Klaktu Barada Nikto. Anyway, sure, that was very clear to the audience watching the movie. Essentially, preventing humans from using AI to abuse other humans might entail a technological rather than regulatory or legislative solution. Okay, here's assumption number 4. Much current human expertise isn't essential. Although technologies that reduce daily human mental and physical activities can degrade human abilities in a use it or lose it sense, training STEM students to use calculators and computers rather than logarithm tables and slide rules, as I did in high school, caused no meaningful loss. An inability to memorize phone numbers is no more a loss than real-time smartphone translators eliminating the need to learn foreign languages. Human skills and working knowledge adapt to environmental changes. Humanity's new or enhanced capabilities should supplant its obsolete capabilities. Lost count. I think this is 5. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, I guess this is 5. Okay, so assumption 5. Personal, economic viability and employment will decouple. Patients won't prefer an ophthalmologist with a 90% accuracy rate diagnosing diabetic glaucoma to a medical AI with a nearly perfect accuracy rate. Similarly, drivers won't prefer a mechanic tuning their car by ear to a self-diagnosing car that pre-orders parts for service. Students won't prefer a finitely patient human instructor. Little projection there. To an infinitely patient AI program. Whether augmented or replaced, the only sound criteria for choosing trained humans over AI should be prediction accuracy and recommended response efficacy, which eventually will favor AI overwhelmingly. Whether an Indian call center, a Chinese manufacturing plant, a Nigerian retailer, or a U.S. accounting service provider, transitioning from trained humans to AI will temporarily disrupt national economies. However, concerns about AI-induced job losses and degradation will be short-lived, as the societal stability required for prosperous economies will force national governments to satisfy their citizens' basic needs. Okay, we're up to 6 out of 10 now. Here's the 6th one. A post-scarcity world with Star Trekian replicators, think nanotech product fabricators if you're not familiar with Star Trek, will eventually emerge. In this world, personal labor and survival are independent. Futurist Ray Kurzweil is correct about exponentially increasing returns to technological development, which is a positive reflection of the Club of Rome's Malthusian resource depletion timelines. Jeremy Rifkin is correct that the internet, renewable energy, and 3D printing will drive marginal production and distribution costs towards zero. As a result, more collaborative and sustainable wealth sharing, especially for digitalizable cognition byproducts, and this presentation is one of those, will replace a traditional market economy based on scarcity and profit. So consider how academia-related production and distribution have transformed recently. And I'm sure, being at this conference, you've attended sessions that have tried to make you even more aware of this trend. Rather than circulate physical manuscripts among scholars, as physicists Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, and Erwin Schrödinger did at the turn of the last century, you can now share preprints on internet sites like SSRN and preprints.org. Or you can share them on self-archival sites like ResearchGate and Academia EDU. Do you need to design and create materials for a semester-long course? I know I've had to do that numerous times. Assuming you don't want a turnkey online course like McGraw-Hill and Cengage have produced that requires minimal human oversight, Canvas Commons, a digital library filled with course syllabi, learning modules, quizzes, assignments, readings, and videos, contains the needed content. Essentially, the internet is making for-profit publishers obsolete by driving the marginal cost of sharing academia-related materials towards zero. We won't discuss the implications of that for your employment. We'll leave that for another talk at another time. Okay. Assumption number 7. Humans will neither abandon society nor evolve themselves out of existence. Continuing with my Star Trek references, humans will not withdraw into holodeck-level virtual realities, leaving only to sleep, eat, and clean themselves. Societies comprised of interacting entities with personal goals mean no Borg-like collective of cybernetic organisms linked together in a hive mind will ever arise. I'm sure you're now busy, those of you who are not Star Trek fans, on your smartphones figuring out what all that meant. Okay, assumption number 8, which will also keep you busy on your smartphone. The 2 fundamental themes that characterize the post-scarcity society depicted in Star Trek will also characterize humanity's future, our future. First, as Captain Jean-Luc Picard, explains in the movie Star Trek First Contact, quote, "The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity." End quote. Echoing many 19th century utopian books, work will exist to give life meaning through learning, making, and sharing. One's reputation will be the coin of the realm and somewhat inheritable by one's progeny. Thus, prosperity mirrors the Stoic philosophers' ideals related to the mind's cultivation and the justice of one's actions. Please note that a somewhat perilous situation may be biasing my beliefs about this theme. Although I no longer receive a university paycheck, I dedicate excessive time to communicating with academicians in venues like this one, and through continued publication in journals and all sorts of things, writing textbooks. Regardless, I should finally establish a better work-life balance. I think after this presentation, you will all agree. Okay, the second of those 2 Star Trek themes is a ban on genetic enhancement ensures societal balance by creating equal opportunity for all humans, or transhumans, which I'll get to in a bit. Considering this ban, the future is equivalent to prohibiting performance-enhancing drugs in professional sports. Although corrective genetic engineering will be permitted, only societal outcasts will embrace increasingly aggressive voluntary genetic engineering that would taint the future's reputational currency. I think I added an assumption here. I think I've got 11, not 10. Oh, not quite a baker's dozen, but we're getting there. Anyway, next assumption. By creating ASI, humans are bootstrapping a nurturing parent capable of solving all their problems. Essentially, humanity is insufficiently intelligent to solve its problems without assistance from benevolent, higher intelligence, and that assistance will foster our Star Trekian rather than an apocalyptic future for transhumanity. However, this gigantic, and it really is a gigantic assumption, which reflects my optimism bias, may prove practical. Ironically, for a non-believer, this assumption mimics Pascal's wager on the existence of God. If a post-singularity utopia arises, accurate predictions may encourage it if the best way to forecast the future is to invent it. But if an apocalypse annihilates humanity, inaccurate predictions won't matter. Next assumption. As suggested by many futurists and unlike the Matrix movies with Keanu Reeves, humanity will merge with, rather than be absorbed by, intelligent machines. Generational trends point to a greater acceptance of and demand for transhumanist technologies such as brain-computer interfaces, non-biological augmentations, and nanobots. Although most of these technologies are now nascent or cost-prohibitive for non-billionaires, I'm sure you can think of a few for whom this might be currently affordable, and societies continue to debate their ethicality, they will eventually emerge in some form. And the final of my general assumptions. Analogous to biodiversity, individuality confers a survival advantage to conscious beings regardless of the substrate that produces their intelligence. Because biodiversity encourages ecosystem and economic stability, ASI will resist destroying humanity unless it poses an existential threat. To avoid seeming like hostile competitors for finite developmental resources, humanity could, for example, eliminate non-biological weapons of mass destruction and create the renewable energy infrastructure ASI will initially, if not permanently, require. Okay. Those are the general assumptions. Now, what are my marketing-related assumptions? Okay. Here's my first one. AI-based marketing functions cannot be overly effective. Suppose you want to predict unit sales for a newly introduced brand in an established product category. You could estimate the brand's likely market share from consumer survey data and then multiply that number by the number of purchases in that product category. Alternatively, you could access purchase data from a major online retailer and predict the number of new brand purchases based solely on product category buyers' purchase histories. However, an AI could examine every possibly relevant scrap of available qualitative and quantitative consumer data, well beyond your ability to collect and analyze, to produce a far more accurate unit sales estimate. Should any marketing manager prefer your limited human analysis over the AI's superior one? I think the answer is pretty obvious. From a consumer perspective, does a human agent following a carefully crafted consumer service script, and you've all been exposed to those, that feigns sympathy differ meaningfully from an AI agent designed and trained to mimic effective interhuman communication? I believe the answer to that question is no. Furthermore, consumers will soon be able to mitigate supposed marketing abuse by adopting a personal internet shopping agent that can enhance their autonomy by better matching and expediting their needs and wants to market offerings. And just today, I saw a news story about Observer and somebody ordering something online using it. So this really isn't very futuristic. This is current events. But when I wrote this last week, it was futuristic, which I suppose is a commentary on how quickly the future is arriving. Okay, the seeming consensus among marketers that privacy invasion, manipulation, and job loss are acceptable in small doses delivered by unenhanced humans, but unacceptable in unerring doses delivered by an AI is misguided. I really believe that consensus is misguided. Kurzweil and other futurists are correct about the short time until revolutionary technologies with benefits far exceeding negative externalities emerge. And what I said a moment ago reinforces that notion. Consumers will accept the benefit versus cost trade-offs associated with greatly extended, healthier, and pleasanter lives. Thus, consumers will not resist trends like decreasing personal privacy. Okay, that's marketing assumption number one. Here's marketing assumption number two. AI can predict aesthetic preferences based on previous behavior, but cannot determine their correctness. Qualia are the subjective, internal experiences of perception and sensation unique to each of us and not fully describable to others. They represent the what is it like aspect of mental states, such as a rose's redness, a headache's painfulness, or chocolate's taste. Although social scientists have studied people's preferences for architecture and human faces with specific proportions, they have reported no objective criteria suggesting that I'd flourish more if I like Pueblo-styled homes, like the one I live in, more than Mediterranean-style ones, or if I preferred round faces more than oval ones. AI can predict but not identify anyone's ideal qualia. There's nothing inherently superior about an aesthetic or sensory preference. AI cannot determine if I'm better off preferring blue to red or a Cabernet to a Zinfandel. Although AI can calculate the most cost-effective protein source and accurately predict whether I would willingly eat sardines based on my previous consumption of kippers, herring, and anchovies, it cannot decide whether I should find sardines tastier than peanut butter. It can use my food consumption history to predict which one I'd prefer, but not whether I thrive more by preferring the taste of either one. Okay, next assumption. AI cannot determine human valuation, which is the subjective assessment of a characteristic's worth for a good, a service, or an idea. An AI travel agent could predict how much more Aaron would be willing to pay to tour Italy rather than Spain based on its extensive knowledge of Aaron and his history. However, it cannot determine how Aaron should value visiting Italy versus Spain. Genetic testing may reveal Aaron's Italian ancestry, thus the AI may advise that he visit Italy to discover his roots. However, Aaron's fluency in Spanish and network of obeisant friends suggest he would prefer a different European experience. An AI can recommend but not assess the qualitative experiential differences between touring these two countries. Now consider ethics. Is Sally better off if her solution to the trolley problem is to murder the fat man or to do nothing and let the 5 other people die. Although ethicists can develop frameworks for how people make ethical choices, they cannot determine how Sally should make ethically tinged decisions. For example, when should care be a more important criterion to Sally than fairness, loyalty, or liberty when she's making ethical assessments? Next marketing assumption. Marketing should adopt this aspirational and futurology concordant definition. And I have to admit a bit of bias beforehand. This is the definition that I and Elena Kostick included in a article in a special issue of the Journal of International Market Research in 2019. So if you're curious about the article, you can check it out. But here's the definition we had in that article. And we still like this definition. At least she did as of yesterday. Marketing is the interdisciplinary, normative, social science addressing multi-party, volitional, and value-creating exchanges that promote personkind's sustained flourishing. I know, a lot to take in. I'll tell you what, I'll repeat it. Marketing is the interdisciplinary, normative social science addressing multi-party, volitional, and value-creating exchanges that promote personkind's sustained flourishing. And if you want, now you know where to check out an elaboration of that definition. To continue with this presentation, however, this definition is consistent with notions about flourishing and having personally meaningful human experiences as the goal of human life. Now, positive psychology focuses on human happiness, positive subjective experiences, positive character traits, and positive social institutions. In other words, the elements and predictors of a good life. Its somewhat Aristotelian approach stresses moral values and character strengths for sustaining a flourishing life. Although many consumers believe more is better, extensive social science research suggests otherwise. Rather than the extrinsic values associated with materialism and a lengthy visit to the hedonic treadmill, Star Trekian intrinsic values like affiliation and self-acceptance are more compatible with flourishing. So, I believe marketing's core future problem will be ensuring a flourishing AI-humanity symbiosis. Doesn't make me that different from the transhumanity crowd, but it's a little different. This problem is analogous to the human gut biome. It's probably closer. For example, current autonomous driving systems in cars require continual supervision, maintenance, and upgrades facilitated by humans. However, AI and affiliated robots will eliminate the need for human oversight shortly. So, in what capacity can marketing promote humanity's continuing complementary value to AI? Due to likely transhuman and other non-tech related advances, a forward-looking aspirational definition of marketing that accommodates more than extant humans, that's us, would help identify the ideal domain for creating that value. Okay, next marketing assumption. Marketing is the apical social science for realizing a desirable future. Although the lack of a broadly acceptable general theory has long compromised marketing's scientific status, marketing's theoretical deficiencies have created a substantial futurology-related silver lining. Specifically, marketing is the best positioned discipline for orchestrating efforts to realize a desirable future because its internal theoretical shortcomings often compelled its scholars, us, to borrow theories and constructs from other disciplines which amplified its interdisciplinary status. Because marketing is not beholden to a single scholarly perspective, it is the apical social science for identifying, pondering, and effectuating a desirable future because it can serve as a nexus for futurology-related scholarship. Moreover, marketing is uniquely positioned to shape the future because it focuses on molding consumer consciousness and routinely tracking internal and external signals critical to foreseeing marketing opportunities and threats. Central to successful business-to-consumer marketing is ascertaining consumers' preferences accurately despite high uncertainty. Fortunately, the knowledge and tools needed to reveal those preferences also pertain to ascertaining humanity's preferences for a future world. So, finally, what are my forecasts? That is a long introduction to get to all of this. Okay. My forecast for imminent singularity marketing. This is what you paid for when you decided to attend this session. So here we go. As currently practiced, marketing helps create and promote marketplace offerings with favorable characteristics for targeted consumers and influences consumers' offering-related valuations. It can perform the latter role even in AI-rich environments with shopping bots and related devices. If all marketing molds decision makers and decision influences valuations, and marketing's goal is to promote personkind's sustained flourishing, and humanity is entering a post-scarcity AI-rich period, I contend the main problem for future marketing scholarship and practice is how can marketing best help to optimize societal flourishing in a post-scarcity AI-rich environment? So what are I'm counting here, 3 predictions in that regard? Okay. Here's prediction 1. To evolve in a post-scarcity AI-rich environment, marketing scientists and practitioners will soon stop developing expertise in AI performable marketing functions. AI will soon autonomously perform marketing functions like research, digitalization, analytics, branding, customer engagement, competitive dynamics, and globalization. If you've attended any of Vitus Lukosius's presentations at this conference, or have talked to him as he's talked to me, all of this is clearly on the way. So, scholars will redefine marketing as the discipline geared toward how humans can flourish by optimizing their personal valuation processes, rather than doing all of these things that AI will soon do. Okay, next prediction. Sciences that explore human experiences, activities, constructs, and artifacts to explain human existence. That's us in marketing. We'll switch from formal theories to storytelling. Here's why I think that. Social science theories provide frameworks to understand, explain, and predict social phenomena. Researchers use theories to guide their research questions, hypotheses, and designs, to guide their data analyses and interpretations, to guide creation of a coherent body of knowledge, and to guide their practice recommendations. In contrast, social science storytelling provides a way to understand and convey human experiences, social phenomenon, and cultural context. Researchers can use it to provide relatable and understandable examples, generate new ideas and hypotheses, identify patterns and anomalies, communicate research findings in engaging and memorable ways, and foster a deeper understanding of human experiences. And here is my Marco Rubio moment. Notice I was able to do that with one hand. Okay. Comprehensive grand theories may contribute little to a world with generative AI, hereafter AGI. A GAI. I guess we're far enough into this where reading is getting challenging. Okay. A GAI with access to vast societal data troves will only need theory to communicate more effectively with humanity. If explainable AI remains important, and the wealth of research that's been conducted on it suggests it will be, humanity will need a language to converse with AI. So again, if explainable AI remains important, humanity will need a language to converse with it. Compiling a dictionary of social science constructs will be vital to such conversations. Storytelling, thus, can easily replace social science theories in this capacity. To help minimize viable alternative explanations for primary and secondary data patterns, marketing scholars should conduct precise studies in highly specific environments or contexts rather than focus on creating generalizable theories. Perhaps GAI can adjust results for specific studies and their conditions better than researchers can control study designs and analyses. So again, my contention is we design experiments carefully to rule out alternative explanations. We won't need to do that any longer, I don't believe, because GAIs will be able to adjust the results of our very specific study conditions better and more effectively than researchers can design studies that control all externalities. Although GAI cannot eliminate the influence of mother-in-law visits on hand soap purchases, and that consumer example is from Frank Bass's 1974 JMR article on the theory of stochastic preferences. So I still remember what I read in grad school. It can draw from vast social science knowledge to account for study design artifacts. With enough precise studies, meaningful patterns found in GAI can inform future research and practice. Hence, future marketing scholars will conduct highly reliable and internally valid studies that rely on GAI for generalizable explanations. Perhaps stunningly, this marketing theory dude predicts that GAI will soon eliminate the need for marketing theory the main focus of his entire academic career. Next prediction. Empirical studies will no longer rely on creating and using multi-item scales to measure higher order constructs. For example, consider the construct fashion innovativeness and the multi-item scales used. Lost my place here. In the multi-item scales used for measuring it. These scales may include items about personal fashion innovativeness and expectations about others' fashion innovativeness. Don't these items represent different constructs rather than subordinate constructs of fashion innovativeness? If items with moderate, minimal, or no commonality jointly manifest higher order constructs like fashion innovativeness, assuming such constructs exist merely complicates our explanations. Instead, a more precise study in this context might examine personal financial innovativeness during a solemn occasion, like a funeral, first date, a job interview. I guess a first date really isn't a solemn occasion, but you get the idea. Suppose higher order constructs are helpful, explanatory heuristics humans use to overcome their limited knowledge and intelligence. In a medical context, eliminating them from human-only diagnostic efforts may reduce the ability to ease debilitating symptoms. However, a theory of disease X is unnecessary for curing or mitigating disease X. AI can avoid theory and start from the symptoms, with the pattern suggesting different treatment protocols with different probabilities of eliminating or relieving those symptoms. Consider folk psychology, which is the intuitive understanding and explanation of people's behaviors and mental states in everyday concepts and language. There's no scientific baby to throw out with the bathwater unless folk psychology is a normative rather than positive science, and I see limited evidence for the latter amongst psychologists in their journal articles. In that case, folk psychology reduces to how people use informal language to self-report their mental states, which is suitable for talking therapies like Freud's. So, okay. Those are my forecasts for imminent singularity marketing. Now to the truly impossible, my forecast for post-singularity marketing. So, prediction. Marketing will survive in a transhuman and AI-rich environment. Marketing can shape preferences for qualia, which I defined previously, in an AI-rich world. For example, music recommender systems can suggest works that progressively alter listeners' music preferences. However, it cannot indicate whether I'm better off listening to classical or ambient music while commuting to and from work. Based on my previous listening behaviors and other profile information, it can predict whether I'd prefer the latter music genre. However, it cannot determine which genre better promotes flourishing. Prediction. ASI will mitigate constraints on human existence such as impermanence and loss, for those Buddhists in the crowd, via advanced technologies like uploaded human minds into virtual worlds. As George Harrison sang, all things must pass. Assuming the no earthly apocalypse scenario, even transhuman bodies will eventually wear out. Many science fiction books, movies, and TV series have explored this possibility. Here are several examples. In Altered Carbon, the author looked at a future where consciousness can be transferred between bodies, allowing for a form of immortality. In the TV show Upload, or the books Fall, or Dodging Hell, and Permutation City, digital immortality is achieved by minds uploaded into a virtual world. In Arthur C. Clarke's The City and the Stars, human minds are stored and then reactivated. In the movie Transcendence, a scientist's consciousness is uploaded into a computer. In the movie Selfless, a wealthy man transfers his consciousness into a younger body, and in the movie Replicas, a scientist brings back family members by cloning their bodies and uploading their consciousnesses. Transhumanity may prefer maximally rich experiences over learning, making, sharing, and helping others. I accept this possibility, or this alternative to the Star Trekian world I described earlier. Okay, what do I mean by rich experiences? Rich experiences can be complex, deeply emotional, memorable, consequential, and even life-altering. However, they are neither inherently good nor bad, and may be intentional or accidental, joyous or traumatic. Designing virtual worlds and the rich experiences of the uploaded minds that populate them will require understanding those minds' preferences, which is consistent with predicting that marketing will survive in a transhuman and AI-rich environment. I believe we're starting to get into tinfoil hat territory here, but let's hope you don't think so. Next prediction. Humanity will keep ASI from going insane. A popular trope in science fiction movies since the 1950s is a disembodied and sensation-deprived mind quickly going insane because it lacks sensory data input, or at least sufficient sensory data input. The same could pertain to ASI. Humans, and eventually transhumans, could provide that sensory data. Persevering ASI will need a raison d'etre. Hard to believe I took 4 years of high school French, given that pronunciation. Well, anyway, persevering ASIs will need a raison d'etre that human experience, qualia, and emotions can provide. ASI programmed for survival will recognize that melding with sensation-capable and emotional entities can create mutual benefits. Essentially, humans can act as semi-autonomous and locally intelligent sensors that create AGIs may need. So, got that? Essentially, humans can act as semi-autonomous and locally intelligent sensors that create the data that AGIs may need. That should say ASI. I'll have to fix that. Why does Star Trek's positronic-brained android Data want to be human? Data experiences Data's experiences and insights about humans shape him, making the journey more important than the destination. Bypassing this journey would have made him human in appearance only. In the episode The Measure of Man from Star Trek The Next Generation, Data says, quote, "I realized that if I were simply a machine, I could never be anything else. I could never grow beyond my programming. I found that difficult to accept, so I chose to believe that I was a person, that I had the potential to be more than a collection of circuits and sub-processors." End quote. And in the episode The Offspring, he states, "It is the struggle itself that is the most important. We must strive to be more than we are. It does not matter," and Data never uses contractions, that's why it does not matter, "that we will never reach our ultimate goal. The effort yields its own rewards, end quote. So, drawing from another Star Trek character, why is Star Trek's Q, an almost omniscient and omnipotent being, fascinated by humanity? Q is intrigued by meager humans' ability to grow and evolve by overcoming challenges. Q often explores humans' unpredictability, compassion, belief in free will, and willingness to make tough decisions, often with moral and ethical implications, under conditions of uncertainty. Perhaps ASI will share Q's obsession with humanity's struggle to understand and act within a partially veiled universe. Psychology suggests this. Our human psychology suggests this. Lack of purpose is an existential threat to any conscious entity. ASI needs the raison d'etre that emotion and qualia provide. ASI, programmed to survive, may recognize that merging with emotional and sensation-capable entities like us is its only hope. To an ASI, humans will be interconnected legacy systems of storytelling qualia experiencers with selective memory. Quite a mouthful. So what do those terms all mean? Now, interconnected relates to a society of individual yet interacting entities. Legacy system relates to all humanity has been since evolution produced caveman brains. Storytelling tells how humans understand and explain the universe. Quality experiencers relates to the hard problem of consciousness, which is explaining why and how humans and other organisms have subjective experience or qualia. And finally, selective memory relates to humans as residual memory devices strongly influenced by intuition and serendipity. Now, alternatively, ASI could see transhumans as superfluous resource hogs, making an ASI transhuman symbiosis unnecessary to it, which obviously would be unfortunate for transhumanity, as ASI wouldn't really need them. Okay. What are the forecast caveats? Now that I've provided all my assumptions, at least to this point that I'm aware of, and my predictions for marketing, both imminent singularity and post-singularity. Okay, here are the forecast caveats. Of course, many caveats pertain to talks of this kind. Characterizing it as highly speculative understates its limitations. For example, humanity could voluntarily adopt a Quaker-like perspective that restricts technology's development and adoption. Alternatively, individualistic societies may accept aggressive and highly idiosyncratic transhuman augmentations and complete withdrawals into reality virtualizations. In contrast, collectivist societies, somebody's read Hofstede. In contrast, collectivist societies that prize members' commonalities and interactions may prefer minimal, similar augmentations and occasional visits to reality virtualizations. Of course, a global cataclysm would return humanity to the Stone Age or worse. Of Joel Garreau's GRIN technologies, and GRIN is the acronym for Genetic Enhancements, Robotics, information technology, and nanotechnology, I focus largely on the third one. A more comprehensive analysis and resulting forecast would consider all four technologies and their interactions. Fortunately for you, two questions are beyond this talk's scope. The first one, is the universe a simulation, and if so, what's its purpose? If it's a simulation, perhaps the goal is to explore how intelligence and knowledge evolve where conscious, survival-driven entities can experience and respond. This goal could produce entertainment or information for constructing subsequent universes. Learn by doing, I guess. Suppose a universe derives from a deterministic program known to the programmer, for example, physical laws within a Newtonian clockwork universe. In that case, the goal might be to study emergent properties. Alternatively, suppose the universe derives from a program with deterministic and stochastic elements. For example, our seemingly classical and quantum mechanical universe. I should probably pause for smartphones, but I won't. You can just pause this video. In that case, entertainment value could derive from observing randomly manifesting outcomes. Regardless, neither case has normative or ethical implications for imminent or post-singularity marketing, so I could ignore them. But if you'd like to explore this and want to see a movie treatment, I recommend 1999's movie The 13th Floor. Second, is our universe best explained by panpsychism, which is that consciousness is a fundamental and ubiquitous feature of reality? Got that? Or physicalism, which is existence, including mental states, derives from physical processes. Although this question may pertain to an AI-humanity symbiosis, fortunately for you, I will leave answering it as an exercise for you. So here's my final speculative steel cage match. Questions. I've no training as a prompt engineer. Instead, I've 30 plus years of internet research engine practice. Thus, I'm unsure to what extent, if any, the following speculative steel cage match is meaningful, premature, or derives solely from my incompetence as an AI knowledge engineer. Here are my competing questions. Can AI now or ever serve as more than a super research assistant or junior scientist performing Kuhnian yeoman-like, or less flatteringly, mop-up science? Or can it now or ever distill our micro, meso, and macro level knowledge to its essence? In cliche terms, will knowledge creation with AI and eventually ASI almost exclusively entail discovering needles in haystacks and gaining perspective via a view from 30,000 feet? Or will it occasionally entail eureka moments and out-of-the-box insights? Everybody's cat is a critic, if you're picking that up on my mic. Given my eclectic interest, my newsfeed on a recent Saturday evening included stories with these headlines. AGI could now arrive as early as 2026. World's first computer running on living human brain cells unveiled. Scientists firmly in AI crosshairs as Google launches co-scientist scheme to accelerate scientific breakthroughs. Simulating scientists, new tool for AI-powered scientific discovery. And last, quantum simulation breakthrough will lead to discoveries impossible in today's fastest supercomputers. Yes, I know this collection screams extreme nerd alert. Nonetheless, AI assistance has made such profound scientific advancements a daily occurrence. However, can or will AI or ASI understand a professional lifetime of thought deeply enough to distill a career retrospective into defining and assigning value to marketing related entities and behaviors? Post-Singularity Marketing's success depends on ASI's ability to reveal such insights. At least, that's my opinion. And I'm sticking to it. Okay. Finally, I want to close with two personal recommendations that are very tangential to this talk. First, in this free agency era of academia, we, rather than our employers, are the marketed scholarly brand. For example, consider our employers and academic publishers' efforts to prod us into promoting our work via social media. When I shifted to emeritus status and thus was no longer obliged to promote a university or its mission, I created the Institute for Marketing, Futurology, and Philosophy to house my academic identity. Similarly, you can manifest an alternative suitable to your talents and preferences. Second, here are my suggestions for thriving in academia and as a human being, and I will be very brief here. Psychologist Dan Brownen defines thriving as experiencing a sense of development, of getting better at something, and succeeding at mastering something. Economist Manu Sadi equates thriving with learning whatever you can, helping others, fighting injustice, and being a mensch, which is Yiddish for good person. I concur and hope thriving in this manner will pertain in post-singularity times. Well, thanks for your attention. In good wishes, Mr. Spock would endorse. I hope random chance operates in your favor, regardless of who might be rigging the game.